The legacy of Darth Bane looms in the galaxy, yet this powerful and menacing Sith Lord has barely taken the spotlight on the big screen. But I wonder, could this change? Darth Bane is arguably one of the most interesting characters in all of Star Wars. And I'm not just talking about how he established the rule of two and the principles behind it, but more about his character in general. The way he talks, the way he thinks, the way he fights, the way he looks at the Sith philosophies from the past. And of course, the principles of the rule of two is kind of based on all of those things. But if you look at all of them individually and you start to break down the character, he really becomes one that stands out compared to so many else. And his story is incredibly well written in the Darth Bane novel trilogy, and if you haven't read those novels, I would strongly encourage you to read them. It's some of the best written novels in all of Star Wars. But the downside of Darth Bane just being in the novels is that, well, a lot of people unfortunately do not read the novels because they are not that interesting to them, because most people want Star Wars on a visual level, like a movie or a show. And yes, we see Darth Bane in some of the comics, and they do represent some of the things that we have read in the novels, but they are not exactly something that's pushed out there for a lot of people to see, at least not anymore. And I would even bet that some of you guys didn't even know that Darth Bane were in some comics. So if you haven't read the Legends novels of Darth Bane, the only way to really know about him is to watch a Star Wars lore video on YouTube, or hear another character in Star Wars mention his name, or at the very least, if you have seen the Clone Wars episode when Yoda goes to meet the spirit of Darth Bane. But again, what we saw in the Clone Wars is a heavily trimmed down version of Darth Bane, and they simply explain him as someone who created the rule of two and left it at that. They even changed his look, which many people were not fan about, especially when Darth Bane have a very specific design and look throughout the novels. So when we take that into account, that Darth Bane haven't been exactly stretched out in the canon timeline, it makes me think, what if we allow a full return of Darth Bane in Star Wars canon, with a new movie or a show? And what could this possibly look like? Well, here's the good thing. The time period where Darth Bane exists in Star Wars Legends have arguably been untouched by Star Wars canon. Obviously they are working on the High Republic era, but that is around 200 years before the Battle of Yavin. But Darth Bane's era is around 1000 years before the Battle of Yavin. And because this era is heavily untouched by canon already, it means that technically we could see the return of almost every aspect of the novels in Star Wars canon, with a movie or a TV show. And this is a great thing because it means that they are not restricted, they don't have much limitations when it comes to telling Darth Bane's story. And Darth Bane's story, again, is so well written and so well done, and establishes everything you need to know about what happened with the past Sith, who were the Brotherhood of Darkness and why Darth Bane hated them, and also why he wanted to create the Rule of Two, which sparked a whole new era for the Sith as they are hiding in the galaxy, with the ultimate goal of taking over once more, but this time through political manipulation instead of simply going to constant war like they have done in the Old Republic era so many times. At this point, a Darth Bane movie or a series makes a lot of sense. So having something for Darth Bane would kind of fill out the entire timeline for Star Wars before they venture into Dawn of the Jedi and the Old Republic era, which takes place many thousands of years before Darth Bane. I think that a movie or a show could either be live action or animation, although personally I think that an animation would be the best option, especially if they're going to rely on the novels for the story. If you have read the story in the novels, you know that Darth Bane goes through a lot of changes in terms of how he looks, in terms of how he fights, and all of the other things that he goes through. It gets quite complicated if you were to put that in live action, but if they do it in animation, they would have so much more freedom, and this would really help to sell the whole image of Darth Bane without compromising, because live action has a lot of compromises in most cases due to actor limitations or budget limitations or basically anything really. Animation is the way to go when you have an extremely ambitious project, which a Darth Bane movie or show definitely should be. It should be an ambitious project because Darth Bane is such a vital character for the Star Wars universe. I do definitely think that Darth Bane will return. It's just a matter of when. Right now in canon, there's so much projects that they're working on, and I do not feel, like I mentioned in one of the previous videos, that Disney Star Wars should throw themselves on top of too many projects at once. So they should definitely focus on completing most of the original era stuff right now, and also conclude the prequel era of things. And then later on, once they've kind of settled that for a little while, then they can work on the Darth Bane story, so that everything kind of ties in together with all of the High Republic content in the middle, and then we have all of the stuff that happens with Thrawn and Palpatine and possibly some future Emperor or something like that. And then we have Darth Bane, who will be the character that will start everything that we know in Star Wars after the era of the Old Republic and Dawn of the Jedi. So all in all, I think a Darth Bane movie or a series would be something that I would argue we need in Star Wars. Especially now with Star Wars Acolyte coming out soon, and they are going to delve into different elements of dark side individuals and probably hint where the Sith are during this time period. And if we follow Star Wars Legends, the Sith are now merchants and hiding in the background and kind of building a network around the galaxy to become stronger that way. But they don't really show themselves as Sith Lords or anything like that because they need to stay hidden, which is technically the exact philosophy of Darth Bane with his principles from the Rule of Two. So to me, everything makes sense. Darth Bane should return, but the way they should do it is by following the stories that we have in the Darth Bane novelization. If they start to create their own version of Darth Bane that disassociate themselves from the novels, I think they will make a huge mistake with the character. Of course, if there already are some plot points or some kind of overlaps that would crash with canon with the Legends version of Darth Bane, then they should fix that, but anything that doesn't crash with the current canon should stay as the same story that we read in Star Wars Legends. And I think a lot of fans would be extremely satisfied with this, and even those who don't know anything about Darth Bane, because if they follow the novels right, his story will be explained. But let me know in the comment section if you think Darth Bane should return or not. So with all that said, never forget, the Force is always with you.